The sky above Velith Prime had always been beautiful. The Velithians would spend hours watching the three moons drift across the purple heavens, their crystalline bodies catching the soft light and reflecting it in patterns that other species found mesmerizing. For 10,000 years, the Velithians had lived in peace on their gentle world. They had never known war. They had never needed weapons. Their planet had given them everything they required. And they had built a civilization of art, science, and quiet contemplation. Elder scientist Kethari stood at the observation window of the central spire, watching the sky burn. The asteroid swarm had come without warning. Their detection systems had seen it too late, and their defense grid had been designed to handle small debris, not the massive rocks that now tore through their atmosphere like angry gods. The first impacts had shattered the northern continent. The second wave had cracked the planet's crust in 17 places. Now, 3 days later, Velith Prime was dying. Kethari's crystalline form flickered with grief as another tremor shook the spire. Through the window, the Elder could see the great domed cities of the eastern provinces collapsing one by one. Each dome held millions of Velithians. Each collapse was a tragedy beyond words. The communication crystal beside Kethari pulsed with incoming messages. Other elders, other scientists, other leaders, all asking the same question. What do we do? How do we save our people? The truth was simple and terrible. They could not save their people. Not alone. Velathian ships were designed for cargo transport and peaceful exploration. They had no rescue vessels, no emergency fleets, no way to evacuate even a fraction of their population. The radiation from the impacts made the debris fields around their world impossible for their delicate ships to navigate. Their technology was sophisticated but gentle, built for a gentle species on a gentle world. Kethari had already sent requests to every member of the Galactic Compact. The responses had been disappointing but not surprising. The Methane Collective expressed deep sympathy, but explained their vessels could not function in an oxygen atmosphere. The Tritonian Assembly offered prayers and promised to name a memorial station after the Velithian people. The Silicon Mines of Proxima sent a detailed analysis of why rescue operations were statistically unlikely to succeed. Everyone was sorry. No one was coming. The Elder moved through the damaged corridors of the central spire, past frightened young Velithians and exhausted emergency workers. The crystalline walls, once beautiful, were now cracked and dark. The gentle humming that had always filled their buildings with comfort had fallen silent dot in the deep archives beneath the spire. Kethari found what the Elder was looking for. An ancient device built before the Velithians had joined the Galactic Compact. A universal distress beacon designed to broadcast on all frequencies, in all directions, to anyone who might hear. The Compact had advised against keeping such devices. They were indiscriminate, the Compact officials had explained. They might attract the wrong kind of attention. They might reach the restricted zone. Kethari activated the beacon. The signal pulsed outward at the speed of light, crying for help in every language the ancient Velithian scientists had known. It crossed the boundaries of compact space. It entered regions that had been marked with warnings. It reached toward the spiral arm that the Compact had declared off-limits for 300 years. Within hours, the Compact responded. A priority transmission from High Coordinator Vexal, speaking with the authority of 17 allied species. Elder Kethari, we have detected your unauthorized transmission. You must deactivate your beacon immediately. Your signal has reached the restricted zone. The Deathworlder species may respond. Kethari's form flickered with something that might have been anger, an emotion the Velithians rarely felt. High Coordinator, my world is dying. My people are dying. Where are your rescue ships? The conditions around your world are too dangerous. Our vessels are not designed for such environments. But you must understand, if the Deathworlders come, it will be far worse than any natural disaster. They are predators, Elder. They evolved on worlds that would kill any civilized species. They cannot be trusted. Then send your ships. Save my people yourselves. There was a long pause. We cannot. The risk is too great. Then I will accept whatever help arrives. The High Coordinator's voice became sharp with warning. The humans are the worst of them. They come from a Class 12 death world. Crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, an atmosphere of corrosive oxygen. Their bodies are designed to heal from damage that would kill us. They feel pain and continue functioning. They pursued prey across their world until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They are monsters, Elder. They will not help you. They will use your desperation to gain a foothold in compact space. Tenori looked at the reports streaming across the communication crystals. Another dome had collapsed. Another 3 million Valethians were dead or dying. The rescue window was shrinking by the hour. High Coordinator, in the last day, 47 million of my people have died. Your 17 species have sent us prayers and sympathy and statistical analyses. If monsters come to save my people when civilized species will not, then I will welcome the monsters. The transmission ended. Cathari returned to the observation window and watched the sky burn. The Elder did not know if anyone had heard the beacon. The Elder did not know if help would come. But for the first time in 3 days, there was something other than despair in the old scientist's heart. Hope. Fragile and uncertain, but present. Far across the galaxy, the signal reached a small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow star. It reached monitoring stations that had been listening to the stars for centuries. It reached people who had built their civilization on a simple principle that the Galactic Compact had never understood. When someone calls for help, you answer. Ships began to move. Crews were assembled. Equipment was loaded. Messages were sent to military and civilian organizations alike. A rescue fleet began to form, assembled not by government order, but by volunteers, who heard a cry in the darkness and refused to ignore it. The Valethians did not know it yet, but their prayer had been answered. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing hope. The first sign was a ripple in space, a distortion that the Valethian sensors barely detected. Then the ripple became a tear, and through that tear came ships. Elder Cathari watched from the damaged observation deck of the central spire as the fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. The Valethians had seen many ships in their long history of peaceful trade with the Galactic Compact. Those ships had been elegant, smooth, designed with artistic beauty in mind. These ships were different. They were ugly. There was no other word for them. Angular and blocky, covered in heavy plating that showed signs of repair and damage. Scars ran across their hulls like old wounds that had healed but never faded. Weapons bristled from their surfaces, more weapons than the entire Valethian civilization had ever possessed. The largest vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of any compact ship Cathari had ever seen. Its hull was gray and battered, marked with symbols the Elder did not recognize. As it moved into orbit around dying Velith Prime, the ship broadcast a message in broken galactic common. Velith Prime, this is Admiral Chun of the United Earthship Mercy's Hand. We received your distress call. We are humans. We are here to help. Tell us what you need. The communication center erupted in activity. The Lethian technicians scrambled to respond, to verify, to understand what was happening. Cathari moved to the primary communication crystal and spoke directly. Human vessel, this is Elder Scientist Cathari. Our world is dying. Our cities are collapsing. Millions are trapped in failing domes with no way to evacuate. The radiation and debris fields are too dangerous for our ships. The human voice responded immediately. Understood. We're deploying search and rescue teams now. Can you transmit coordinates for your population centers? It was too simple. Too fast. The Galactic Compact had spent days explaining why rescue was impossible. These humans had been in the system for less than an hour, and they were already asking for coordinates. Human Admiral, the conditions around our world have been classified as too dangerous for navigation. The radiation levels alone would be lethal to most species. There was a strange sound over the communication channel, something Cathari had never heard before. Later, the Elder would learn it was called laughter. Elder, we appreciate the warning, but we've navigated worse. Transmit those coordinates. We're burning daylight. Cathari did not understand what daylight had to do with anything, but the Elder transmitted the coordinates. Within minutes, smaller ships began separating from the human fleet. They dove toward the planet's surface without hesitation, threading through debris fields that had destroyed Velithian rescue attempts. Compact observer Vex Myra, who had remained in orbit to monitor the situation, sent an urgent transmission. Elder Cathari, you must reconsider. These humans are predators. They hunted prey to exhaustion across their world. They eat the flesh of other creatures. Their bodies are designed for violence. The Elder watched the human ships descending through fire and radiation. And now, observer? What do they hunt now? Vex Myra had no answer. Within hours, the first human rescue teams reached the surface. Cathari watched the video feeds with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. The humans were tall by Velithian standards, their bodies thick and solid, built to survive conditions that would kill any civilized species. They wore heavy suits that protected them from the radiation. But even those suits could not fully shield them. They did not seem to care. Team after team entered collapsed structures, pulling survivors from rubble that had been declared impossible to search. They worked with a desperate efficiency that the Velithians had never seen. When one team became exhausted, another immediately took its place. They carried injured Velithians with a gentleness that seemed impossible for being so large and powerful. The compact observers were horrified. They sent continuous warnings about the danger these Deathworlders represented. They cited statistics about human violence, about their wars, about their history of conflict. Cathari noticed something the observers did not mention. The humans were using their strength to lift collapsed walls. They were using their endurance to work for hours without rest. They were using their persistence to search areas that had been given up as lost. The violence the compact feared had been transformed into something else entirely. A young human officer approached Cathari as the Elder supervised the evacuation of the central spire. The officer's face was covered in dust and exhaustion, but her eyes were bright and focused. Elder, we've got a problem. There's a residential dome in the southern sector that's about to collapse. Our scans show approximately 2,000 survivors inside, but the structural damage is severe. Our engineers think they can stabilize it, but it's going to be close. Cathari felt a wave of despair. The southern domes had been considered lost. No one had even attempted rescue there. The radiation in that sector is 3 times the lethal limit for my species. It must be dangerous for yours as well. The officer nodded. It is, but we've got volunteers. They know the risks. Why would they volunteer for such danger? The officer looked confused by the question. Because there are people who need help. What else would we do? She turned and ran back toward her team before Cathari could respond. The Elder watched her go, trying to understand these strange creatures who ran toward danger instead of away from it. The Galactic Compact had called them monsters. They had called them predators. They had called them Deathworlders as a warning. But as Cathari watched them carry Velithian children to safety, risk their lives for strangers they had never met, work until their bodies failed, and then push themselves further, The elder began to think the compact had misunderstood something fundamental. These were not monsters. These were exactly the kind of people you wanted to receive your distress call. Sergeant Maria Santos had been doing search and rescue for 15 years. She had pulled survivors from earthquakes in Chile, floods in Bangladesh, and the aftermath of the Seattle superquake. She thought she had seen everything. Velith Prime was different. The crystalline structures that the Velithians called buildings were beautiful, even in destruction. They caught the light in ways that made the rubble look like scattered diamonds. They also shattered into fragments that could slice through a standard rescue suit in seconds. Her team had already patched 3 suits and sent 2 members back to the ships for medical attention. None of that mattered when there were still people to save. Sergeant Santos. We've got a heat signature under that collapse. Private Chun pointed toward a mountain of crystalline debris that had once been a residential tower. Small, probably a child. Maria studied the wreckage. The collapse pattern was unstable. Any movement could trigger a secondary fall. The radiation readings in this sector were already past safe limits, and they would only get worse the deeper they went. Standard protocol would require heavy equipment and at least 3 hours of preparation. They did not have 3 hours. I'm going in, Maria said. Chun, you're on come. Rodriguez Yamamoto, watch for secondary collapse and be ready to dig me out if this goes wrong. Sergeant, the radiation exposure you'll take in there exceeds recommended limits by a factor of 4. Maria was already moving. Then medical better have a bed ready when I get back. The rubble shifted beneath her as she crawled into the narrow gap. Sharp crystals scraped against her suit, and she could hear the warning chimes of her radiation monitor increasing in frequency. Somewhere ahead, in the darkness, a child was waiting. The Velithians had tried to explain their species to the human rescue teams. They were fragile, they said. They had evolved in a gentle environment and had never developed the durability that allowed humans to survive injury. A fall that would bruise a human would shatter a Velithian. The force required to move rubble could crush them. Maria had to be careful. Stronger than the beings she was saving, but careful. She found the child in a small pocket beneath a collapsed beam. The tiny Velithian was curled into a ball, crystalline form flickering with fear and pain. One arm was trapped under debris, and even Maria's untrained eyes could see that it was badly damaged. Hey there, Maria said softly, switching her suit's translator to Velithian. My name is Maria. I'm here to help you. The child's large eyes focused on her. You are a human. The broadcasts say you are dangerous. Yeah, well, the broadcasts say a lot of things. Maria began carefully moving the debris away from the child's arm. Right now, the only thing I'm dangerous to is this rubble. What's your name? Velsari. I am 7 cycles old. My parents were in the upper levels when the tower fell. Maria felt her heart tighten. 7 cycles old. Just a baby. Alone in the dark with her world falling apart around her. Well, Velsari, I'm going to get you out of here. Then we're going to find your parents. Sound good? The other rescuers said this area was too dangerous. They said no one would come. Maria freed the last piece of debris from the child's arm. The damage was severe, but the Velithian medical teams had assured her that crystalline limbs could be repaired. She gently lifted Velsari, cradling the tiny being against her chest. Those other rescuers weren't human. Were stubborn like that. The climb out was harder than the climb in. Maria's radiation monitor had stopped chiming and started screaming. Her suit reported multiple small tears. Her left arm was bleeding where a crystal shard had penetrated her glove. None of it mattered, as she emerged from the rubble into the harsh light of Velith Prime's damaged atmosphere. Her team was waiting, along with a Velithian medical unit that immediately rushed forward to take the child. Sergeant Santos, your radiation exposure is critical. You need to return to the medical ship immediately. Maria waved them off. How many other heat signatures in this sector? 17 confirmed, possibly more. Then I've got work to do. Private Chun stepped in front of her. Maria, the doctor said your cellular damage is already going to require treatment. If you keep going, it could be permanent. Maria looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the collapsed buildings around them, at the Valethian rescue workers who could not enter the most dangerous areas, at the small figures being carried to safety by human teams throughout the sector. I'll deal with it later, she said. Right now, there are people who need help. That's what we do. She moved toward the next collapse site. Behind her, she heard Chun sigh and follow. Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out. Human engineering teams were drilling stabilization pylons into fault lines, arguing with each other about the best placement, and occasionally arguing with the planet itself. Medical teams were treating Valethians who had never seen a human before and were terrified of their saviors until they realized that these large, strange creatures were treating them with extraordinary gentleness. In orbit, Admiral Chun coordinated the operation from the bridge of Mercy's hand. Reports came in constantly, and she sorted through them with practiced efficiency. Rescue teams needed more supplies. Engineering teams had found a way to stabilize the atmospheric processors in the northern hemisphere. Medical ships were approaching capacity. A communication request came from the Galactic Compact Observer vessel. Admiral Chun accepted it. Observer Vexmira's face appeared on the screen, their expression unreadable. Admiral Chun, I have been watching your rescue operations. I do not understand. What don't you understand? Your species gains nothing from this. You are expending resources, risking lives, taking damage to your own people. The Valethians have nothing to offer you in return. Why do you do this? Admiral Chun considered the question. It was the same question that the Galactic Compact had been asking since humans first made contact. Why do they help? Why do they sacrifice? Why do they refuse to act in their own rational self-interest? Because someone has to, she said simply. Because if we don't, who will? The observer had no response. The Galactic Compact fleet arrived on the 7th day. Admiral Chun watched them emerge from faster-than-light travel. 12 warships in perfect formation. They were beautiful vessels, sleek and elegant, designed with the artistic sensibility to characterize compact engineering. They were also heavily armed. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the compact flagship. Put it through. High Coordinator Vexal appeared on the screen, their expression severe. Admiral Chun, on behalf of the Galactic Compact, I order you to cease all operations and withdraw your forces from this system immediately. Chun raised an eyebrow. On what grounds? You have violated quarantine protocols by entering compact space without authorization. You have interfered with a member world's internal affairs. You have exposed a protected species to contact with Deathworlder influences. Your presence here is illegal and dangerous. High Coordinator, we responded to a distress call. That's legal under every treaty and convention I'm aware of, including the ones the Compact signed. The distress call was unauthorized. The Valethians had no right to broadcast it. Your response was therefore not legitimate. Chung leaned forward slightly. So let me understand this correctly. The Valethians were dying by the millions. They called for help. We came. And now you're telling me that was wrong because they didn't file the proper paperwork? You are simplifying a complex diplomatic situation. No, I'm clarifying a simple moral one. We're saving lives. What exactly are you doing here? Vexal's expression hardened. We are restoring order. We are protecting the Valethians from Deathworlder influence. We are maintaining the stability of the Galactic Compact. The Valethians don't seem to want your protection. They seem to want our help. The Valethians are frightened and desperate. They are not thinking clearly. When this crisis is over, they will understand that accepting help from your species was a mistake. Admiral Chun stood slowly, her eyes fixed on the screen. Behind her, the bridge crew was silent, watching the exchange. "High Coordinator, let me be very clear. In the 7 days since we arrived, we have saved 420,000 Valethian lives. We have stabilized 60% of their remaining population centers. We have asked for nothing in return. Not territory, not resources, not political concessions. Nothing." She paused. "What have you done? You've watched. You've warned. You've explained why rescue was impossible. And now you're here to tell us to stop helping. You do not understand the complexity of the situation. I understand that people were dying, and you did nothing. I understand that we came to help, and now you want us to leave. What exactly am I missing?" The communication channel fell silent. On the screen, Vexel seemed to be struggling with something. Perhaps the realization that their position was more difficult to defend than they had anticipated. "Admiral, The Galactic Compact exists to maintain peace and stability among civilized species. Your presence here threatens that stability. Your capabilities, your willingness to enter dangerous environments, your disregard for personal safety, these things frighten the other species. If they see the Valethians accepting your help, they may begin to question why the Compact could not provide the same assistance." Chan nodded slowly. "So this isn't about protecting the Valethians. It's about protecting the Compact's reputation. It is about maintaining order. No, it's about fear. You're afraid of us, and you're afraid of what it means that we came when you wouldn't. You're afraid that other species will see this and wonder what else you've been wrong about." The bridge of the Compact flagship erupted in angry voices, quickly silenced by Vexal. The High Coordinator's expression was cold now. All diplomatic pretense abandoned. "Admiral Chun, you will withdraw your forces, or we will compel you to do so. You want to fight, Coordinator? Right here, in front of the people we came to save? We want you to leave, and if we don't?" The silence stretched. On Chun's tactical display, the Compact warships were moving into attack positions. They outnumbered her fleet, though not by much. A battle here would be costly for both sides and devastating for the Valethians below. But Chen was not planning to fight. She was planning something else entirely. Mercy's hand to all human vessels. Begin broadcasting on all open frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. She turned back to the screen, to Vexel, to the Compact that had watched the world die rather than risk their precious ships. "High Coordinator, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want everyone listening to hear your answer. Are you here to help these people, or to stop us from helping them?" The broadcast went out across the system, picked up by Valethian communication networks, Compact monitoring stations, and independent observers. It spread to nearby systems, to species who had heard about the strange, Deathworlders who had answered a call for help. Vexal did not answer. The silence was answer enough. Below. On the surface of Velith Prime, Elder Kethari watched the confrontation on damaged display screens. The Elder Council had gathered in the emergency meeting chamber, debating what to do. The Compact was demanding that they reject human help. The Compact was threatening consequences. Kethari stood before the council, crystalline form flickering with emotions that Valethians rarely expressed: anger, determination, a new feeling that the Elder could only describe as loyalty. For 10,000 years, we have been members of the Galactic Compact. We have followed their rules, respected their protocols, trusted their promises of protection. When our world died, they sent us sympathy. When we called for help, they sent us warnings. When help finally arrived, they sent warships to stop it. The Elder looked at each council member in turn. The humans came without being asked to join any alliance. They risked their lives without promise of reward. They saved our people without condition or expectation. They are everything the Compact warned us about. And they are also everything the Compact failed to be. Tadari transmitted the Council's decision to both fleets. This is the Valethian Elder Council to the Galactic Compact Fleet. You are ordered to leave our system immediately. The humans are here at our invitation, and they will remain until our people are safe. Any hostile action against them will be considered an act of war against Velith Prime. The Compact Fleet hesitated. Then, slowly they began to withdraw. Admiral Chun watched them go, then turned to her communications officer. "Get me Elder Kethari. I think we have more work to do." 3 months later, Velith Prime was no longer dying. The planet would never fully recover. The scars of the asteroid impacts would remain visible for centuries. Great wounds in the landscape where cities had once stood. Millions had died, and that grief would shape Valethian culture for generations to come. But millions more had lived. Cities that should have fallen, destabilized by human engineering. People who should have died breathed recycled air from human atmospheric processors. Children who had been pulled from the rubble were growing up with stories of the strange creatures from the stars who had come to save them. Admiral Chun stood in the great hall of the central spire, which had been rebuilt with a mixture of Valethian crystal and human steel. The combination was unusual, but it was strong. It would stand for a very long time. "We'll be leaving tomorrow," Chun said to Elder Kethari. "Our engineers have trained your people on the new systems. Our medical teams have shared everything they know about treating radiation damage. The communications relay we're leaving behind will let you contact us directly if you ever need help again." Kethar's crystalline form caught the light from the rebuilt windows, scattering patterns across the walls. "Admiral, I have struggled to understand your species since you first arrived. The Compact taught us that intelligent beings act in their own self-interest. They help others when there is something to gain. They take risks when there is something to win. And your people gain nothing from saving us. You risked everything for strangers. Some of your rescue workers will carry health problems for the rest of their lives because of the radiation they absorbed." "Why?" Chung considered the question. It was the same question the Compact had asked, the same question that seemed to confuse every species humanity encountered. She had given simple answers before, but Kethari deserved something more. "Elder, do you know much about Earth? About where humans come from?" "Only what the Compact warned us about. A Class 12 death world. Dangerous gravity, extreme temperatures, a corrosive atmosphere. A world that seems designed to kill its inhabitants." Chun nodded. "All true. Earth has earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, volcanoes, ice ages, and 1,000 other ways to kill you. Our evolution was not gentle, Elder. We did not grow up in a peaceful garden. We grew up fighting for survival against our own planet. That would explain why your species is so resilient. But it does not explain why you help others. Actually, it does." Chun walked to the window, looking out at the recovering city below. Valethians moved through the streets, rebuilding their lives with a determination that reminded her of home. On Earth, the creatures that survived were not always the strongest or the fastest. Sometimes they were the ones who worked together, the ones who helped each other through disasters, the ones who refused to abandon their pack when things got dangerous. She turned back to Kethari. "We evolved to help each other, Elder, not because it was logical, not because it was profitable, but because that is what kept us alive. When one human was injured, others carried them. When one group had food, they shared with groups that did not. When disasters struck, we ran toward them, not away. Even when it cost you? Especially when it cost us. The greatest heroes in human history are not the ones who conquered or accumulated wealth. They are the ones who sacrificed. The ones who gave everything for strangers. We tell stories about them to our children. We build monuments to remember them. Tathari processed this, crystalline structure shifting with thought. The compact calls you Deathworlders as a warning. They mean it as an insult. I know. But to you, it means something different. Chun smiled. Where we come from, surviving a death world means you've been tested. It means you faced the worst your planet can throw at you, and you're still standing. And the ones who survive best are not the ones who fight alone. They're the ones who look out for each other. So, when you heard our distress call, we heard someone who needed help. That's all we needed to know. Cathari moved closer. Crystalline form dimming slightly in what Chun had learned was a gesture of deep respect. Admiral, the Galactic Compact has existed for 300,000 years. In all that time, no species has ever come to help another without expecting something in return. You have changed something fundamental about how we understand the universe. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I do not know yet, but I believe it is a true thing. And truth is always valuable. The next day, the human fleet prepared to depart. Thousands of Velethians gathered to watch, their crystalline forms creating a shimmering display across the rebuilt observation platforms. It was the largest gathering since the asteroid impacts, and there was something different about it. Something that felt like Hope. Admiral Chun made a final transmission before her ships entered faster than light travel. People of Velith Prime, it has been our honor to help you. We came because you called, and we stayed because you needed us. If you ever need us again, we will come. That is our promise. Cathari responded on behalf of the Council. Admiral Chun, your species came to us as strangers. You leave as family. The Velethian people will never forget what you have done. As the human ships disappeared into the vastness of space, Cathari stood at the observation window where the Elder had watched everything begin. The sky was clearing. The atmosphere processors were working. Life was returning to Velith Prime, but more importantly, something else had changed. Other species had been watching what happened here. The Compact's failure and humanity's response had sent ripples through the galaxy. Already, quiet messages were arriving at the central spire. Other worlds, other species reaching out carefully. They had heard about the Deathworlders. They had heard about the strange beings who answered distress calls from strangers. They wanted to know more. Cathari thought about what Admiral Chun had said about human heroes. The ones who sacrificed for strangers. The ones who ran toward danger instead of away. The Galactic Compact had called them monsters. They had called them predators. They had used the word Deathworlder as a warning to stay away, but Cathari had seen the truth. When the universe was dark and cold and everyone else had looked away, the Deathworlders had come running. They had given everything for beings they had never met. That was not a warning. That was a promise. And in the years to come, as more and more species reached out to the small blue world called Earth, the galaxy would learn what that promise meant. The Deathworlders would answer. They would come, and they would never leave anyone behind.